Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, on occasion when you stare into the madness that is the filmmaking progress, when it is a madness that is self-induced, sometimes that madness stares back. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast. We sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in light and a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that you do. You can listen to the podcast, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating. Pretty much wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, it's pretty much all good. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, and we're on the Instagram at, well, you guessed it, at In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. Oh boy, boys and girls, on this one we got a good one, because we are staring into the heart of darkness itself in many ways, because the film we are looking at is it's a special one, especially for those who've seen documentary some 15 years back called Lost in La Mancha, which documented writer-director Terry Gilliam's effort to tell the story of the man who killed Don Quixote. And it's an engaging, compelling film, and the film was a bit of a disaster because the film never really got made. But now they reunited, because 15 years after that, Terry Gilliam succeeded and released The Man Who Killed Don Quixote a couple of years back, and this was he'd been working on this for years, decades really. And I mean, it's a fascinating process to see, and it's fascinating to see how much it all really took out of him as well, because it's just the way he works, and there's a very much a bit of a self-induced chaos involved as well. And the man, the directors of the original Lost in La Mancha reunited here, Keith Fulton and Louis Pepe, to make this new film, He Dreams of Giants, to document the successful attempt to tell the story, which is on VOD platforms this coming August 9th. I believe Apple and a few others as well. But it is, if you're a film fan, if you are a cinephile, this is a must see, because it is definitely takes a slightly different bent from Lost in La Mancha, but it really kind of brings things full circle, and it gives us a sense of who Terry Gilliam is as a filmmaker, and just seeing this Herculean effort to get these things done. It's kind of amazing to watch. If you're a fan of the moving image and the process of filmmaking, this is something you will absolutely want to watch. But we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with half of this directing duo, Mr. Louis Pepe, to talk about sort of the origins of making another film about all this, and sort of getting back in bed with Terry Gilliam and documenting this, and sort of the shifts of how it all unfolded. And I mean, it was just as fascinating a talk as it is a fascinating movie. But do check out He Dreams of Giants, which is on video on demand platforms this coming August 9th, like Apple and a few others. But first, enjoy our talk with Louis Pepe, because between you and me, it's a darn good one. But I mean, obviously, just to kick this off officially, man, thank you so much for the time today, and congratulations on the film. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you very much.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is, you never thought there'd be a sequel for Lost in La Mancha, but then there kind of was. Like, walk me through, I guess, sort of the initial stages of you guys going, okay, I guess we're getting in bed with Terry again, and we're going to follow this.
It's an interesting thing, because Keith and I had sort of, after Lost in La Mancha, we sort of did a whole number of years of writing Hollywood screenplays and trying to get movies off the ground, and And then we got into making documentaries about public education, and we made this film, The Bad Kids, which is, us doing a deep dive in pure observational documentary. And then right after The Bad Kids came out, Terry called and said, "Oh, I'm going to make The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. You guys should come back." And I said to Keith, "We've already made two documentaries about him. How do you top Lost in La Mancha? Do we really want to go back? We're kind of doing something different." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you're right." And then the more we thought about it, we thought, well, gee, if we don't make this, someone else is going to make it. So we should kind of go back and finish the story.
Yeah.
And we were also interested in we had a number of questions as documentary filmmakers, like, why is he still doing this? And that was like a driving question for us wanting to be there, to really kind of get into, why is he doing this? When you've worked on one creative endeavor for so long in your life as an artist, what does it feel like to finish it?
Yeah.
And so much of our work with Terry over the years has been about exploring our own curiosity as filmmakers about the process.
Right.
And so I felt very much like, I want to go there just to kind of see what does this feel like? What does it mean to be a late career filmmaker? What does it mean to finally get to make something that you've been pursuing for a third of your life?
Yeah.
And those were kind of the driving questions. And then we mentioned it to a few friends, like, "Hey, Terry's doing this," and he said, "Do we want to go?" And all of our friends were like, "You better be going." Like, absolutely.
No, but I mean, it's one of those things, and I mean, I think there's something I really appreciate about the film is that it's not necessarily just about the chaos of making a film, which is its own special kind of chaos in and of itself, but it's about the chaos that is Terry himself. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, how early on were you guys aware that we're probably making a film that's a little more reflective of Terry as opposed to sort of the production of the film?
I think quite early on we felt that because when Lost in La Mancha was made, we filmed that in 2000, and we were culturally and in the world of moviegoers and cineasts, we were on an upswing of movies about the movie making process.
Right.
And there were a lot of parts of the process that none of us had seen. This was one of the big things for us on The Hamster Factor, was like, oh, we're in the post-production process, we're in the marketing meetings, no one goes to see this stuff. But by the time we were filming Terry on The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, there's been 20 years of making of documentaries about every angle of the process. And so watching a movie get made is not really that, like, we've all seen it now.
Right.
We've all seen
Yeah.
how a movie gets made. And also, when we made Lost in La Mancha, we were in our early 30s. So to be on a movie set, oh my God, this is interesting, that is interesting. Now you're in your, early 50s, you're on a movie set. It's like, okay, been there, done that. What is the new thing that I've never experienced before? And part of that was looking at Terry and knowing Terry for all of our creative careers, really, and saying there's something different about this man, and I want to try and understand it. And me as a camera person, that was why I just kept going back to Terry's face, because I kept feeling like, yeah, there's chaos. They're trying to get something to work. They're losing the light, whatever. But watching his face was like, this is the thing I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
This is the thing I want to try and understand. What is going on in that head? What is, not just why is he still making this film, but what is he really feeling about it? And it also wasn't what I was expecting. I showed up in Spain thinking, this guy's going to be like the most ebullient I've ever seen Terry Gilliam. And he wasn't. And that surprise was the thing that kind of drew me to, oh no, this is a film about, The Hamster Factor was very much man versus the system, Terry versus the studio system. Lost in La Mancha, man versus nature. This one was very much man versus himself. And all of those inner struggles of an artist wrestling with mortality, disappointment. Here it is, you finally get to do it. Is it everything you dreamed it would be? Um, and that was the stuff that kind of fascinated me.
Well, I mean, there is this real sort of fascinating glare, sort of, because artists really never retire one way or the other. And I mean, when you have a creative person who's sort of putting a cap on their career and their life, to sort of see that go on the bottle is innately fascinating. And I mean, obviously through your films, and I mean through the stories, like we've all heard about, problems with Brazil, and I mean the grief that was on Munchausen, and obviously with what you guys captured with La Mancha. What is it about Terry that sort of has this chaos? Because there was a line from footage that you guys pulled. I think they were shooting Life of Brian or something, but it's just him learning on the job. Like that, to me, really, it feels like that kind of sums up who Terry is as a person. He's still trying to figure it out, and he's not going to be happy with it.
Well, this is interesting because my career as a filmmaker, and I know Keith has a slightly different relationship with Terry than I do, because I tend to be the more reverent of the two of us. Keith is the irreverent one when it comes to Terry. I'm the more reverent one, and everything he said, I kind of put it in the memory banks, and like, okay, that's the way you make movies. And I remember this thing he said. I would have been, 28, 29, young filmmaker. And he said, "Oh, you're always learning how to make the film that you're making, and you don't know how to make it until you've done it. And everyone is a new learning experience." And I look at that and I go, "Oh, right, this is an artist who doesn't learn how to do something and then just keep doing that over and over. He's constantly pushing into new territory. He's not interested in doing something that he already knows how to do. He's interested in going someplace or doing something that is just beyond what he thought he knew.
Yeah.
He's got the mentality of what we would have considered an old school adventurer or explorer. Like, someone else has already mapped that territory. I don't want to go there. I'm going to go to the territory that someone hasn't mapped yet. Um, and that's risky territory, and that's dangerous territory. And there's Terry as an artist is a bold artist. He always wants to go deeper, further. I think is one of the reasons why we look at his films and we get excited by his films. He's always taking us someplace we've never quite been. And now we exist in a culture where you can watch a film and go, "All right, this person was inspired by Brazil. This person was inspired by Munchausen." Um, and I know he has his own inspirations, but Terry has always, you know, been exciting to me as an artist because he seems like he's pushing into territory that other people might be reluctant to go in. Hence, why are you still trying to make a film that, you've had trouble with for 25 years? Most people would have given up. He's not most people, and that makes him fascinating.
Now, I mean, when you guys get back onto this, because obviously, as you guys showed in the film, some of the same players come back from 20 years old, and it's like I can imagine there's a bit of secondhand and shorthand that allows you guys to sort of seep into the background. But were you guys sort of welcome to sort of document all this? Because I mean, especially the people who were there the first time may very well know like this could be a train wreck again.
I think we were welcome because obviously we've known Terry for many years, and we were also some of the familiar faces. So
Yeah.
there were a few people who had been there before and were among those faces. Um, Everybody is always suspicious of the documentary filmmakers for like, oh, they're trying to generate conflict, or they're only interested in conflict, or they're going to create it, they're going to make everything look like it's, full of conflict. But I think for the most part, we're kind of old hat to most of the people at this point. And they all knew Lost in La Mancha, which I think is, for all of its reveling in the disaster, is still an empathetic film, and shows a certain
Sure,
level
for sure.
of ethical filmmakers were making it so we can trust them, which might not have been entirely wise, but yes, we
Now,
were welcomed.
I mean, I'm curious because, and I mean, this might be a little hyperbolic, but bear with me. But Lost in La Mancha almost sort of created its own subgenre of, the movie, of making the movie, which, isn't sort of, which was went beyond sort of the standard electronic press kit crap that we're kind of used to seeing, kind of thing. I'm kind of curious for you guys, how does it feel to have had sort of this impact, to see all these other movies that in one way or another have kind of spun off what you guys did with Lost in La Mancha?
When you phrase it this way and when other people phrase it this way, I feel kind of flattered, and I feel like, oh, maybe I'm not the hack that I feel like in the course of my daily existence as a artist trying to make something. But for the most part, it doesn't register, like it doesn't enter my
Right.
thoughts. And I learned about this also looking at Terry, because when you're a creative person, you tend not to dwell too much on the I did this and I did this and I
Yeah.
did this. You're always looking forward, like you're either working on something and trying to make it work, and it's the most important thing in the world because it's the thing you're working on, or you're looking for the next thing you're working on, which is like I'm looking for the next thing I'm going to fall in love with.
Right.
And you tend not to look back. And in my social circle in Los Angeles, I've sat down with people who I say like, "Oh my God, you made this film and you made that film," and they don't sit on that. And I can
Yeah.
see that with Terry too. It's like, yeah, fine, I made Brazil. Yeah, fine, I made Mancha. I want to make this thing that's right in front of me. This is what I'm chasing right now. And those other things were like something I did, and I'm proud of them, but they don't sustain me in terms of like the thing that will sustain me is the thing I'm working on right now.
Is that how you manage to kind of stay out of the way? Because I mean, I can imagine that as a creative person working on your own creative process, trying to tell your own story, but of another person's story, there can be a certain amount of fear of kind of getting in the way of the other person's story.
Well, I mean, in documentary is inherently, or the kind of documentary that Keith and I like to make is inherently a self-effacing process.
Right.
You're there as a witness. And while I've learned in my career that being a witness is not necessarily passive, it is a self-effacing, withdrawing role. Uh, and I sort of feel like there's a difference between being a witness and an observer. And observer, feels like, oh, you don't necessarily see me. I think with Terry, I felt very much like a witness, like I see you and I acknowledge what you're going through. I'm still stepping back. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm not going to try and alter it. Um, so it's a little dance you do as a documentary filmmaker to be present as a witness, but not alter what's happening in front of you. The biggest thing about getting in the way, and we made Lost in La Mancha. We've been on the set of our own movie, Brothers of the Head. And then we mostly were not on movie sets for a while. And I had forgotten as a documentary filmmaker, when you're on a movie set, you're always in the way.
Yeah.
When we were making The Bad Kids, it's a high school, I set up a shot. I know that the kids are all going to come out of that classroom at this time. On a movie set, you spend 20 minutes setting up a shot, and then right when you're waiting for the thing to happen, someone steps in front of your camera because they're doing their job, and you can't say you're in my shot because their shot is more important than your shot, which is a slightly frustrating thing about being on a movie set. Is like all the good vantage points, they've usually put their cameras there, and your camera is like, you're in the way, documentary guy, move.
I think that was so true in Dangerous Days, the Blade Runner making of. Just, I mean, half the shots were just shots of the other cameras getting set up. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, just in watching this film, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, just in seeing Terry and seeing his process, it almost felt like he needed a witness to validate the pain of what they were going through to make this while it was being made. I mean, that almost feels like it's key to his process.
I think so. The weird thing about being a witness to his pain is it's not exactly the thing one wants to be reminded of afterward. I think with Brazil and Munchausen and, all of the different um, documents of films getting made, whether it's the book or a documentary. Um, Terry's always wanted those documents. And there's something about this one where I feel like at the end of it, it was like, oh God, that's the pain that I went through. Like, don't even remind me. Um, and it was something he used to say was like, oh, we forget the pain that we go through, which is why we want to make the next film. But I have a feeling that He Dreams of Giants makes that pain unforgettable. Uh, maybe a little too much.
No, I mean, just to put a cap on this, I mean, has Terry seen it, or does he even want to see it?
He has seen it. I think this one is more painful than he wants to watch. And I know um I know he in a way was a little uncomfortable with how much of it is about him. Our other films have been more about the whole process. They've been more about the film. Um, and this very much turns all the lens is turned on him all the time, which I think makes him a little itchy. But it is the role of the documentary filmmaker to capture the things that people might not want to look at, but need to look at.
Would you think it's because just at least he's accepted the fact that maybe he's not going to have that next one to look forward to, that this is it, he's hanging it up?
Well, you had mentioned this earlier where you said like watching a filmmaker put a cap on it. And I don't think he felt that. I certainly hope it's not the case.
I hope so too, obviously.
I
Yeah.
want Terry Gilliam to be making more movies. But I think it might be painful even just starting to look at like, oh right, that's how exhausted this thing
I mean, you put
made
him in the
me.
hospital, for God's sake.
Right. And the thing I learned watching Terry over the years is Terry always has the best sense of humor of anybody on his
Well, yeah.
films, right? He's got the
He's Python, for
gallows,
God's sake, of course.
but he has a gallows sense of humor that allows him to take in stride any misfortune that comes.
Yeah.
And he, on Lost in La Mancha, you see it when you watch the film. He's laughing in the middle of that flash flood. Like it's too absurd. He laughed a lot less on this incarnation, and I marked that, and I felt like, oh, right, in Lost in La Mancha, the frown and the absence of laughter is the rarity, and on He Dreams of Giants, the laughter is the rarity. Because I think that it took a toll on him. But I think that's also, that's where it becomes a tale about anybody, especially artists, pursuing the grand goals that we pursue and the price that we pay when we try to pursue those goals, which it takes it out of us.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I mean, Lou, man, thank you for witnessing Terry and his processes and sharing it with us, because I mean, it will never it will never not be fascinating just to see sort of the creative process really laid out there, and with someone who like Terry, who just lives it 110% like he does. It's amazing to see, and it's amazing to appreciate. And just again, thank you for the work, and I hope people get to see this new one coming on video on demand soon. And just thanks for the time today.
I hope they get to see it as well. Thank you for your interest, Dave. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, man. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.